Today, we're diving into a crucial topic, contrasting the identities formed by CRT, intersectionality, and social justice with our true identity in God's family. How do these worldly perspectives stack up against the eternal truth of our identity in Christ? The deeper I dove into understanding social justice and what has happened in some churches, the more I realized all of this has to do with identity. Ryan Anderson, in his foreword to Carl Trueman's book Strange New World, said it this way: "This is a retelling of how the human person became a self, how the self became sexualized, and how sex became politicized." CRT, social justice, inequality, intersectionality are all seeking to solve a problem. That problem? Who we get to say we are. Throughout the ages, the Bible has stood in stark contrast to every culture, worldview, and system that sets itself up against the wisdom of its tomes. When you boil it down, America, its patriotism, capitalism, freedom, its Christian religion, its white heterosexual, its male founding are the enemy. So the opposites of what has been deemed evil is the new good. The opposite of patriots are traitors, deserters, and renegades. Hello BLM, Antifa, Democratic Socialists, and pro-Palestinians. The opposite of capitalists are socialists. The opposite of freedom is bigger and bigger government that spies on its citizens, silences free speech, and increases its budget to enslave the populace with inflation. The opposite of the Christian religion is any other religion that opposes it, especially worldviews that hold to no religion. The opposite of white is any and every preferred minority. The opposite of heterosexual is everything but. The opposite of male is female. Gender is a construct.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
You've misgendered me. And mass confusion. We don't know who we are, but we want the ability to make it up. We kick and scream against physical reality because we've been sold a bill of goods that tells us we can be anything we want. Thank you, Disney. We want to belong, but can no longer fit into the previous set standards of society. So we attempt to align with someone or a group of people, not based on similarity, but shared differences. More acutely, shared enemies.
Jim is my enemy, but it turns out that Jim is also his own worst enemy. And the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So Jim is actually my friend. But because he is his own worst enemy, the enemy of my friend is my enemy. So actually Jim is my enemy.
That's why we see Muslims in Dearborn and Hamtramck, Michigan, taking up arms with LGBTQ groups to bring down constitutionalism and majority Christian influence, to only later turn against the very groups that helped bring them to power. Hamtramck has an entire city council made up of Muslims, and recently they banned LGBTQ pride flags on all city property. Secularists, communists, LGBTQ proponents, and those who align themselves with their ideologies have been thoroughly indoctrinated and set to dismantle the existing patriarchy, as it were. They don't know what to set up. Muslims do, and are doing just that. Secularists have become pawns in the mission of Islam because they're too emotional, confused, and heated to think carefully and long term. CRT and intersectionality often define us by our oppression, our race, our struggles. They tell us that our identity is tied to our societal categories and the amount of discrimination we face. Identity, identity, identity. Social justice movements further reinforce this by emphasizing our differences and promoting a narrative of victimhood, perpetual victimhood. These ideologies might seem empowering at first glance, but they come with limitations. They box us into categories, they focus on what separates us, our skin color, our background, and overlook what can bring us together. In contrast, the Bible presents a radically different view of identity. In God's family, our primary identity is not our race, it's not our gender, it's not our social status as beloved children of God with inestimable value, having been created in His image. Galatians 3:28 reminds us, "There's neither Jew nor Greek, slave nor free, male nor female, for you are all one in Christ Jesus." That is equality. The gospel shatters the barriers that the world builds. Where worldly ideologies divide, the gospel unites. It brings together people from every nation, tribe, and language, forming a family that reflects God's love and diversity. The church, as Jesus and the New Testament authors taught, is more than an assembly, it's a family. It's the place where we belong in spite of our differences, sometimes because of our differences. This isn't about shared genetics, but shared faith. In this family, our differences become strengths, and our unity bears witness to the transformative power of the gospel. Earthly ideologies like CRT and social justice often overlook one critical element: redemption. They focus on grievances without providing a path to true reconciliation. In contrast, the family of God is about reconciliation with God and with each other. Church is a group of sinners saved by grace, living in fellowship as saints. Church is a body of believers, bound as brothers and sisters by an eternal love. Church is a holy ground where sinners stand as equals before the throne of grace. Church is a refuge for broken hearts and a training ground for mighty warriors. Church is a converging of confrontation and invitation, where sin is confronted and hearts seek restoration. Church is a lesson in faith and in trust. Church is a bearer of burdens and a giver of hope. Church is a family coming together, setting aside differences, forgetting past mistakes, rejoicing in the smallest of victories. Church, the body and the circle of sinners turned saints, is where God resides, and if we ask, He is faithful to come. As members of God's family, our challenge is to live out this identity in a broken and dying world. It means seeing beyond the labels the world gives us and recognizing the image of God in each other. It's about unity in diversity, loving and accepting each other as Christ has loved and accepted us. In closing, let's embrace our true identity. In Christ, we find a family where we are known, loved, and accepted, not for our earthly labels, but for our hearts transformed by His grace. This is the identity that matters most, our identity as children of God. Thank you for joining me on this journey of discovery. As we part, remember we are one family, united in love and purpose. Until next time, let's live out our true identity in the family of God. God bless you all.